companies to go after these companies who are essentially profiting off their kids, data. And I don't think kids absolutely need social media in any way, shape, or form. I think that this is not really hurting anybody. I think it's just an absolute W. I don't know what else to say about it. I mean, if people are mad, certainly parents can override this and give their youth whatever access they want to social media. Look, I worked at Walmart, I worked in the electronics section, and parents came in all the time about their 12-year-old's Call of Duty. Okay, I didn't have anything to say about it. They're not my kids. I don't need to worry about that. But ultimately, the default setting, I think, should be more protective. And when these rules aren't followed, there should be huge financial penalties for it, and it seems like there actually is. So this is just a huge win all around for parents, for kids. I hope to see you in the description. Remember, 1,000 new customers this weekend is the goal. Right now we're at 59, so we're moving right along at the time of recording this, and I've only released one video. So head on over to coffeebrandcoffee.com or the link in the description to save 17% off. Give our whole bean or our ground coffee a try, or our organic teas, or our detox teas, or our hot cocoa, really any of it. Or maybe tell a friend, send them the link, tell them to try it out if you know someone who likes coffee, tea, or cocoa. And I'll see you on the Gilded server, link in the description too. We'll talk to you guys soon.
I know you're out there. I can feel you now. I know that you're afraid. You're afraid of us. You're afraid of change. I don't know the future. I didn't come here to tell you how this is going to end. I came here to tell you how it's going to begin. I'm going to hang up this phone, and I'm going to show these people what you don't want them to see. I'm going to show them a world without legacy check marks. A world without rules and controls, without borders or boundaries. A world where anything is possible. Where we go from there is a choice I leave to you.
What's going on, everyone? Jeremy here from the Quartering. I hope you're having an absolutely wonderful day. It's Friday, signifies the end of the week for many people, although I will be uploading on Saturday as per usual to keep something for people that have that long work week that includes Saturday. I hope you're having a great day. Now, Twitter has enacted, well, essentially D-Day for woke weirdos that saw their entire value around a blue check mark. I've talked about at length that I don't necessarily agree with Elon Musk charging for them. I wish he had just fixed the application process, but it has been a leveling of the conversation, and there's only one side of the aisle that really was upset by that. And now the actual day is on the calendar, and it is only a week away. And the left elitists are absolutely melting down. Let's get into that story. Just a couple of quick announcements. I'm going to mention a couple times today. I'm doing a massive, I think this is the biggest discount I've ever done. I'm trying to get some first timers to try out coffeebrandcoffee.com. How about 17% off? That's basically like the Telegram and like Twitter. I'm just going to be posting videos to. I wanted to find a place that is free for everyone, that we can all still interact. And I've landed on just defaulting to our Gilded server, which is 100% free. It's just like Discord, only not run by SJWs. And we're there 24/7 for people to talk about whatever they want to talk about for the most part. And I would love for you to join that. Locals is great, but people have to pay to be able to talk to me. Twitter's just such a mess. So I hope that you'll join our Gilded server. There's already 10,000 people there, so there'll be plenty of people to talk to. Twitter says it will begin to end legacy blue checkmarks in April. Not just in April, but on April 1st. Twitter announced on Thursday that it will begin removing its blue legacy verified checkmarks on April 1st. Yes, April Fool's Day. The social media keep their blue checkmarks to a subscription page with a link leading to application.
When I first started it, so I just restarted it with a default title. I'll fix it later. Thanks for popping in, though.
And that supposed change of schedule like was Fool's Day, it's possible the whole thing is a spoof. No, I don't think it is, because the Twitter CEO has voiced his plans to eliminate the legacy checkmarks in the past. In February, he replied to a tweet criticizing the initial introduction of the verification checkmark program. Legacy blue checks will be removed soon, he warned. Those are the ones that are truly corrupt. Now, he's not wrong about that. They were obtained through either connections with corrupt people inside of Twitter. We know basically via Twitter files and things that Elon Musk has told us that Twitter employees were playing favorites and giving these check marks to liberal journalists, regardless of number of followers. I mean, I've seen people who were verified that had like 100 or 200 followers, and I was denied a blue check mark even at something like 100,000, 150,000, 200,000 followers on Twitter. They still denied me. Even though I had people impersonating me, they still denied me. And by the way, to this date, that's why I decided to make the change off of, I'll still use Twitter to like post my videos and stuff, but it's just so much noise. And at least with Gilded, I have one place to contact you and talk to my owners. Where they don't have to pay to talk to me, or they don't have to deal with other people spurging out on them over every little thing. A more chill spot. But of course, the meltdown has begun. You see, here's Christopher Boozy. Twitter is removing legacy verified checkmarks in April. You can transfer your legacy checkmark to Spoutable using our free quick verify tool in the settings menu. Note, your Spoutable and Twitter handles must be the same. Like, you will leave the platform. People are willing to leave the platform just so they can maintain a check mark wherever it is that they are. Now, I've changed my opinion on the blue check mark with Twitter, and I'm not going to tell anyone how to spend their money, because there are like flat out benefits to having Twitter Blue that are not tied to the check mark. For example, having the verified tab, having access to uploading longer videos, being able to edit your tweets. These are things that I think are worth paying for Twitter Blue. The reason I decided to stop paying for it for now was that they're still banning people for many of the similar reasons that they were before. Now, to be fair, many of them are getting reinstated, but the state of Twitter is still wildly in flux. And I felt like, well, I'm giving Elon all this money on a hope and a prayer that it'll be what he says it will be. Why don't I just wait and keep my $8 a month right now until it is what he says it will be? Then I'll be happy to resubscribe. But it was never about the blue check mark for me. It was about uploading longer videos, which didn't really work out. I ran all the data. I kept the view count there. People didn't really want to watch 10-minute videos sitting on YouTube. If I produced 2-minute videos, it would have been beneficial. But that's neither here nor there. Then you end up with a wide variety of other issues that I just don't want to deal with right now. But with a lot of people, Elon needs to go back to doing things that help humanity. And then this is funny, a lot of people are like memorializing it. I got my, we have to call it now, legacy verified checkmark in 2015. Like, imagine remembering the date you got a stupid pixel on a website. It has been genuinely useful. However, I'm happy to go without it, given its primary purpose, letting people know I am who I say I am, is gone. Its functionality is actually worthless now. But again, that's not necessarily true, because you can upload longer videos, you get access to the top articles tab, you get access to a wide variety of other tools and things of that nature. So, Elon just needs to increase the value there. The silver lining is that anyone who has a blue tick after that has revealed themselves to be a sucker and a rube. Coming from somebody with pronouns in the bio and somebody who clearly is literally writing a eulogy to when they got their check mark. I look forward to having a good giggle at their expense to drastically reduce the audience. I mean, what? And there's people all in and out of this thread under legacy checkmark. Like, man, I don't even have a legacy checkmark and it makes me upset. All that hard work you did to earn a checkmark? What? What hard work? Like, literally, what hard work? I think the best part of the announcement is watching all the legacy verified nobodies squirm and seethe. Sorry, Joe Schmo startup bro who had a friend at Twitter give him a checkmark in 2011. No one cares. Well, that's how I view it. And what's weird is that a lot of people, remove all legacy blue check marks April 1st. Check marks and legacy blue do not offer any special treatment. Well, I don't know about that. Why would anyone else want Twitter blue besides a check mark? And even then, 8 days are not even going to mean anything when they remove the legacy check marks, unless you have the golden yellow check mark L on Musk again. Like, people just very, very angry and seething. And of course, people say, well, that's why people buy the check mark, blah, 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 blah. I think ultimately it's an interesting move. I still think you can have check marks without a corrupt checkmark process. I think Elon will just pay to get it right away and there'll be some quick cash, but he has other issues going on at Twitter still right now. Why advertisers aren't coming back to Twitter. There's no getting around it. Twitter survival in the coming months depends on how its new owner, Elon Musk, manages the relationship with key groups of people, advertisers. It's been a rocky pairing since October, when Musk officially took over. Many big-name advertisers paused spending on his platform. Almost 5 months later, the company standing with advertisers that historically make up 90% of its revenue still has not measurably improved. More than half of Twitter's top 1,000 advertisers from before the acquisition have stopped advertising on the platform as of February, according to data from digital marketing analysis firm Pathmatics that shared with Vox. Out of Twitter's top 10 advertisers pre-acquisition, only 6 of them still advertise on the platform, according to the firm that affects Twitter's bottom line. The company's revenue was down 40%.
Hey, dirty dog.
December report by the Wall Street Journal. I don't think that Elon is, yes, obviously he wants advertisers to stick around, at least for the near future, but I think his long-term plan is to turn it into a service where more people are paying $8 a month. And really, if he's smart, that's going to, turn into getting premium content or premium services, real stuff that actually matters. Like, the edit button doesn't matter to most regular people, but maybe Twitter turns into a Spotify thing where it hosts content and it sells all sorts of stuff like that. These are things that will, increase the uptake on the $8 a month. The advertisers, they'll come back. They're holding, if they were profitable before, here's what all this really tells me is that they weren't profitable before. If they were profitable before, they'd already be back. Anybody who does any real analytics, no company's going to purposely lose profit to virtue signal very often. It's easy to cut stuff that you weren't making money on before and pretend like, oh, it's because of Elon. That's simply not true. So we're going to have to see how this, the meltdown of all the legacy checkmark people continues over the next couple of weeks. It's definitely fun to mine their salt. I hope to see you over on in the Gilded server later. And don't forget, just this weekend only, promo code 17OFF over on coffeebrandcoffee.com. Trying to get as many people from my audience who drink coffee, tea, or cocoa, or maybe know somebody that does and wants to, tell them about it. I want to try to get as many people as possible. I'm trying to get 1,000 new people to try this weekend. So big discount this weekend only. Give us a try right here in the United States. It's my company, and I would love to earn your business. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure you leave a like on it, and we'll talk to you again soon.
That's all he has for new ones. We'll check out DE News now. Is he already off live? Damn it. Fucking windy as fuck out.
Not a National Socialist one. So where did Brennan run this piece? A page as far from removed from humanitarianism as possible. The neo-Nazi site Daily Stormer. I could find no other publication which would publish this.
That was the quartering.
And I'm far from a neo-Nazi. For the evangelical left, those who suffer largely.
I just tried to jump into it. Yeah, he does about 4 or 5 videos a day. He's only done 2 so far.
Or more precisely, they are allowed to have their own conscience if and only if it fits into their salvation model. Else, they can be considered as corrupted. The black man loses his blackness, which is a state of grace and has nothing to do with skin color. Clarence Thomas isn't really black, but Bill Clinton is, in the same way that the Eucharist literally becomes the body of Christ. Similarly, the disabled object of empathy and veneration becomes a hateful heretic, and eugenics remains a taboo that must be enforced, rather than an idea to be discussed. Brennan's piece is calm and reasoned. He's speaking from personal experience and has an informed point of view. The shame that Brennan had to be driven into the hateful arms of the Daily Stormer, kicking and screaming, or screaming at least, is lost on progressives. As the evening wound down, the conversation turned to what each of us would do if we were given $1 billion. I would discover the virus for homosexuality, one man said, and fund a vaccine. The idea that homosexuality is caused by a pathogen sounds crackpot at first. It's a strange welding of the old homosexuality is a disease argument with the more contemporary people are born gay. The fact of the matter is that we don't know what causes homosexuality. We don't even know what causes heterosexuality. It's unclear how the human mind becomes attracted to what it is attracted to. This also ignores the eternal question of whether homosexuality refers to the attraction or to the act itself. Are you really gay if you get on your knees but your heart isn't in it? Gay people very frequently claim that they were born gay, but this is a claim no one can make with precision. I was born gay is a looser way of saying I've been gay since I can remember. In terms of memory, being born gay and having one's sexuality crystallized at, say, 6 months would be recalled in identical terms. On this point, gay people have as little insight as heterosexuals do about why they're attracted to what they're attracted to. Due to twin studies, we do know that homosexuality...
No, this is the same author, but this is
identical twins are genetically
called The New Right. It's an older book by Michael Malice.
Surveys of
The
identity.
white pill just came out last year.
Both twins are gay or straight, but in some cases one is gay and one isn't. This holds true both among twins raised separately and together, meaning twins with the same genes and same environment have different outcomes with regard to sexuality. So there is some effect, but not enough for a guarantee. The issue with homosexuality.
The white pill is more of a history book.
It's extremely evolutionarily disadvantageous. Those who prefer to have intercourse with their own gender are far, far less likely to pass their genes along for obvious reasons. It's funny to point this out to the evangelical left, because even a word as literal as disadvantageous sets some of them off, because dis sounds bad, and saying anything bad about gay people is homophobia, and it took Reagan 500 years to even say the word AIDS, and OMG, go back to Bible school with that crap. That basically seems to be the reasoning, although it's rarely expressed even that linearly and coherently. Given all of the above, really of scientists is Gregory Cochrane. It sounds more controversial than it needs to be, and obviously combining the words virus and homosexuality is touchy and laden with bad connotations and historical references. Yet it's as good a theory as any, and would have absolutely no effect on claims about the morality of being gay. There are many infections that are known to cause their host to act in certain ways for reasons that are not clear. The zombie fungus Ophiocordyceps unilateralis causes ants to leave their colony, attach themselves to a leaf, and stop moving in order to function as a living host for the fungus to exploit. Toxoplasma gondii causes crazy cat lady disease, which can trigger schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, OCD, and aggression. A pathogen that causes humans to be attracted to their own gender, frankly, seems far less upsetting than either of those two. Yet if this pathogen were discovered, we might very well see the end, or near end, of homosexuality within a generation. One of the most insightful things Rosie O'Donnell ever said was during her coming out the glass closet in 2002, meaning when a person is technically still closeted, but everyone in their personal life knows that they're gay. During her publicity tour, she was asked by Diane Sawyer if she wanted her children to be gay or straight. If I were to pick, O'Donnell mused, would I rather have my children have to go through the struggles of being gay in America or being heterosexual? I would say heterosexual. I think life is easier if you're straight. One of the first out gay people, Quentin Crisp, 1908 to 99, agreed. As recounted in The Independent, in 1997, he told the Times that he would advise parents to abort a fetus if it could be shown to be genetically predetermined to be gay. If homosexuality, can be avoided, I think it should be. And while there are many parents who generally don't care if their child is gay or straight, there are many who, if given the chance in private, would opt for the same preference as O'Donnell or Crisp. I listened to all this with a great deal of interest. It was the sort of intellectual conversation that would cause many New Yorkers to go apoplectic, yet most of them would be unable to articulate why. As for myself, I had a guess as to why having the issue discussed in such terms would lead to awkwardness. Can we please have a conversation, I suggested, that doesn't end in advocating genocide? I just think it would make the progs go nuts. Don't you understand that it's not about the gays, I said. If gay people never existed, they would find some other group to champion in order to dominate society. There are an infinite amount of tools in their toolbox, and each is disposable. Besides, if you got rid of gay people, who do you think is going to be creating culture? The Catholic Church? Apparently, that was precisely who they thought would be creating culture. Sure, the Catholic Church was the be-all and end-all of culture for quite a long time, yet it's hard to imagine a world where it can produce something to compete with It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, or even Lena Dunham's Girls. The argument is that the Catholic Church and other bastions of traditionalism are only regarded as passé due to the progressive control of entertainment. I found this absurd even on New Right terms. What I didn't realize at the time was to what extent the New
On the
Right
road
was
again, yeah, we're heading to Costco. I'm gonna try and bring you guys in there, but sometimes the signal gets pretty shitty in there. We'll see. It disconnects.
The strike. If you look at the great philosophies and ideas that have moved the world,
probably shouldn't have used up my other live notification though if I'm gonna go do that checkpoint tonight, but oh well.
Do you think you would have ever had those great guidelines had people gone out and said, brothers, I believe in consensus? Of course you wouldn't. You would have had nothing great, nothing of value. Margaret Thatcher. Every movement has a creation myth. Conservatives have the Founding Fathers. Liberals have the Civil Rights Movement. But for the New Right, Genesis starts a little more than 25 years ago. The dirty little secret is that the New Right actually isn't all that new. Rather, this subculture has its roots in what was known as the Old Right, emerging at the moment when the Paleo-Libertarians, meaning Rothbard and his people, teamed up with the Paleo-Conservatives, i.e. Buchanan et al. There is a religious war going on in our country for the soul of America, Pat Buchanan told the 1992 Republican National Convention. It is a cultural war, as critical to the kind of nation we will one day be as was the Cold War itself. While we do know that First Lady Barbara Bush was wearing pearls at the time, it's unclear as to whether she literally clutched them at that moment. She wouldn't have been the only one. The reaction from the cathedral, the press, the political establishment, and everyone else who shaped the acceptable opinion was quick and unanimous. What do you mean by culture? Wondered three-time New York Governor Mario Cuomo. That's a word they used in Nazi Germany. As Buchanan recounted at the time, Mario is not the only one to have recoiled in fear and loathing. Media, who have burbled all over Mario's locutions in class warfare, found my Houston speech divisive, hateful, and the old standby, racist. Carl Rowan told his co-panelists on Inside Washington it was the closest he had ever heard to a Nazi address. Bob Beckel thought my remarks might have been ghosted by Satan himself. The savagery of the reaction, ongoing, underscores my point.
Some piggies coming up here.
As polarized as we have ever been, we Americans are locked in a cultural war for the soul of our country.
Getting the BAM.
It wasn't as much what Buchanan had said as how he said it. Others had taken similar positions before. Protectionism, putting the American workers first, cultural conservatism. None of these were particularly objectionable, even in combination. But to dub political disagreements as a war, to imply that those on the other side were an enemy to be defeated, was a bridge too far. It's 1992. How can we be having this conversation? The Cold War had ended, and it had given way to a new world order. America was supposed to be a kinder, gentler nation. Everyone knew that it was time to melt down the knives and put the pitchforks away. Everyone, that is, except for those completely outside the mainstream of political discourse. In other words, everyone except for people like Rothbard, who had been in the audience in Houston and watched Buchanan with more than a bit of glee. Buchanan's fellow traveler Sam Francis once wrote an essay titled "Capitalism the Enemy." For Rothbard, it was precisely capitalism that was the one and only savior of mankind. Whereas Buchanan was a strict constitutionalist and a strong patriot, Rothbard was opposed to government itself, and not just the American government, but all government. According to Rothbard's anarcho-capitalism, all state functions could be served cheaper, better, and more effectively by the free market. This included the police and even national defense.
What's up, D. Johns?
Whereas Buchanan's views were informed by a sense of earnestness, humility, and respect.
We'll try and take you guys into Costco with me. We'll see how that works out.
Buchanan was an Irish who regarded 1959's liberalizing Vatican II Council as a surrender of the forces of good, meaning orthodoxy, to those of decadent modernism. Rothbard, on the other hand, looked and sounded so much like a stereotypically Jewish New Yorker that if he had played himself in a movie, it would have read as an anti-Semitic caricature. Rothbard wasn't a misanthrope so much as he regarded very few people as worthy of his respect and admiration. As a Columbia University student, Rothbard had the luck to have George Stigler as one of his professors. Impressed with the very same pamphlet that so offended Rand, Rothbard began visiting the Fee Mansion. On staff at the time was the man who would be the most important influence on Rothbard's life, Ludwig von Mises. It was on July 8th, 1948, I met him at the fabled estate. Mises was by far the most important figure of the Austrian School of Economics. The Austrians eschewed economic calculation for a more philosophical approach to issues of finance and trade. They viewed modern theories as highly mathematical, heavily conceptual, and largely divorced from reality. For them, virtually every contemporary economist is akin to a geocentrist using increasingly complicated models to predict how celestial bodies circle the Earth. Difficult math doesn't make a calculation true, and neither does it make its practitioners smart. This disdain for
you.
statistics can be seen in the new right's contempt for using numeric data as a mechanism of persuasion. It's about the story, not the numbers. Mises was born in 1881 in my hometown of Lvov, in what is now Ukraine. He emigrated from Eastern Europe to New York in 1940 and became perhaps the most thoroughgoing American defender of laissez-faire capitalism. Years later, Milton Friedman would recount a story about the first meeting of the Mont Pelerin Society, held in 1947. The group was meant to bring together what Europeans would call liberal intellectuals and what Americans would describe as libertarians. As Friedman recalled, we were discussing the distribution of income and whether you should have progressive income taxes. Some of the people there were expressing the view that there could be a justification for it. Furiously and famously, Mises declared, "You're all a bunch of socialists," and stormed out. Much like Rand with rent control, Mises felt that once income distribution is on the table, the jig is basically up. It simply becomes a matter of haggling over how much socialism there is. Mises' masterpiece was 1949's Human Action, a very long, a very densely written book. Mises uses praxeology as the basis for human activity and seeks to answer why humans behave the way they do in an economic sense. His work gathered the ire of bisexual ex-communist and National Review writer Whittaker Chambers, who did not take kindly to Mises' view that anti-capitalism was rooted in envy. As his biographer put it, to Chambers, this shocking thesis epitomized know-nothing conservatism at its know-nothingest. In his own years as a communist, Chambers stiffly said, he had not envied capitalists in the least.
Bullshit.
Rothbard became an attendee at Mises' New York University Economic Salon. He later briefly fell into rage.
All non-ruling communists envy capitalism.
She would fare even worse at Chambers' pen than Mises had. When Chambers reviewed Atlas Shrugged, he proclaimed, "Out of a lifetime of reading, I can recall no other book in which a tone of overriding arrogance was so implacably sustained. From almost any page of Atlas Shrugged, a voice can be heard, from painful necessity, commanding, 'To a gas chamber, go!' Then as now, certain types have no problem comparing right-wingers to Nazis, even Jewish ones, as Rand, nay, Alice Rosenbaum was." Rothbard's own 1962 masterpiece, Man, Economy, and State, was basically human action made clearer and more readable. He codified Rand's political principle that no man can initiate force against another man, which led to her advocating such things as voluntary taxation, into the non-aggression principle, or NAP. It is therefore a pun when anarchists refer to the Rothbardian author and pundit Andrew Napolitano as Judge Nap. For Rothbard, no government interference with exchanges can increase social utility, and we are led inexorably, then, to the conclusion that the processes of the free market always lead to a gain in social utility. Therefore, capitalism is the fullest expression of anarchism, and anarchism is the fullest expression of capitalism. Not only are they compatible, but you can't really have one without the other. For Rothbardians, as opposed to their archenemies, the neocons, the worst of all government activity is war. It is in war that the state really comes into its own, having power, dominion over the economy and the society. There is no difference between a Lois Lerner and a beat cop. They are both enforcers of the state, albeit in different clothing. Rothbard eventually made his mark in academia as well. His 1963 book, America's Great Depression, is still taught in many universities by professors who have no idea what an ANCAP is. As his official online biography puts it, far from being a proof of the failures of unregulated capitalism, the 1929 Depression illustrates rather the dangers of government interference with the economy. The economic collapse came as a necessary correction to the artificial boom induced by the Federal Reserve System's monetary expansion during the 1920s. The attempts by the government to cure the downturn served only to make matters worse. In making this argument, Rothbard became a pioneer in Hoover revisionism. Contrary to the myths promoted by Hoover himself and his acolytes, Hoover was not an opponent of big government. Quite the contrary. The economic policies of the engineer in politics prefigured the Great Deal. Rothbard's view of Hoover is now widely accepted. For For the evangelical left, equality and fairness are universally shared goals. Rothbard's response was a book titled Egalitarianism as a Revolt Against Nature. The idea that freedom and democracy are not only compatible, but downright synonymous, is taken for granted in contemporary American culture. But here Rothbard disagrees as well. The popular conception of democracy is one in which every voter envisions their ideal society and then votes us in that direction. In the anarchist perspective, akin to everyone imagining themselves as a totalitarian dictator and then selecting the politician who will best implement their plan into reality. Rothbard thought of the vote in a different way. By regarding all state action as illegitimate, he viewed the two political parties as literal rival gangs. Power needed to be curtailed as much as possible and hopefully destroyed.
I'm gonna get gas now since the lines aren't so long. I usually get it afterwards, but I hate getting gas when they're filling the tanks, though. Shit.
The murderous thug within. Accordingly,
Oh, well.
the new right still regards vulgarity toward and disrespect for the elites as important mechanisms for revealing their true inner evil. Let them drop their masks and expose themselves as the moral abominations that they really are. Though he doesn't use the word, Rothbard saw trolling as a way to bring down the establishment. Since these elites are also the hitherto unchallenged opinion-molding class in society, their rule cannot be dislodged until the oppressed public, instinctively but inchoately opposed to these elites, are shown the true nature of the increasingly hated forces who are ruling over them. To use the phrases of the new left of the late 1960s, the ruling elite must be demystified, delegitimated, and desanctified. In other words, irreverence will free us all. It is this radical perspective on the legitimacy of voting and the state that led Rothbard to make such seemingly unpredictable political alliances. As a Columbia graduate student, he had once founded a Students for Thurmond group. I showed up to the first meeting, he recalled, which consisted of a group of Southern students and one New York Jew, myself. There were a brace of other New York Jews there, but they were all observers from the Henry Wallace Progressive Party, puzzled and anxious to find out to what extent fascism and the Ku Klux Klan had permeated the fair Columbia campus. This was, of course, in 1948, not 2016. Rothbard insisted that during this period, he never once encountered any anti-Semitic hostility, yet he admitted that there were
Wonder when this
unfortunately
book was
very few
written.
Jews. Later in his life, Rothbard wrote that he had naively supported the segregationist Strom Thurmond's Dixiecrat presidential candidacy in 1948, hoping at the time that the States' Rights Party would continue to become a major party and destroy what was then a one-party Democratic monopoly in the South. By combining this bloc with Midwestern anti-establishment Republicans, a new majority party could be born. Rothbard
2019 he wrote
anticipated
this.
Richard Nixon's
It's not long
notorious,
ago.
but victorious
Right before COVID.
1968 Southern strategy, 20 years ahead of time. And it was Nixon that formed the first link between Rothbard and Buchanan, though both men found themselves on opposite political sides. After barely losing the presidency in 1960, former Vice President Nixon went on to a humiliating defeat in 1962's California gubernatorial election. The press could barely hide their delight, and the contempt was more than mutual. People remember the angry, "You don't have Nixon to kick around anymore," during his concessional press conference, but they forget that he prefaced it with a plea for the media to do their job without an underlying agenda. "I would hope that in the future," he said, "as a result of this campaign, that perhaps they would try at least simply to see that what both candidates say is reported, that if they have questions to ask of one candidate, they ask the same questions of the other candidate." By 1966, the former vice president and current loser and laughingstock was pondering another run for the White House. A 27-year-old Pat Buchanan was the first advisor Nixon hired for his 1968 campaign, joining the team after working at the St. Louis Globe-Democrat as an editorialist.
I tried getting in
At first, Buchanan held a more nuanced view of the
D
media
News's
in
room,
Boston.
but
This view did not last. The press, Nixon told him bluntly, is the enemy. Just like Nixon, Rand had her own cadre of enemies, breaking relationships with one follower from her inner circle after another. Miss Rand was nothing if not opinionated. She insisted that all her views were derived from and demonstrable by reason. and that her Atlas
Be right
shrine was
back.
so tightly argued that to accept one part was to accept it all. Given her sexual peccadillos and the claim that Atlas integrated economics, morality, and sex, the logical corollary was that the purely rational man demanded laissez-faire from Washington and BDSM from his women. As she described one of her characters, the diamond band on the wrist of her naked arm gave her the most feminine of all aspects, the look of being chained. Rand's Sphere, and years later satirizing her in his embarrassingly juvenile and unpublished play, Mozart Was a Red, Rothbard searched for other alliances. So while Buchanan was joining with Nixon, Rothbard was singing the praises of Tricky Dick's arch-enemies, the New Left. Sometimes it was hard to tell if the anarchist Rothbard was simply looking for people to take him seriously, and at other times it was hard to tell how they could. For Rothbard, the way to freedom was to destroy the only thing that ever stood in his way.
Oh, it's cold.
He praised the Black Power movement at first, seeing it as a useful opponent to the state, though spending little time writing about race per se, being an ultra-individualist. In 1967, Rothbard wrote that Che Guevara was an heroic figure for our time and the living embodiment of the principle of revolution. In other words, my enemy's enemy is my friend, a principle that the New Right struggles with to this day. These sentiments were not exactly shared by Nixon, the candidate, or Nixon, the new president, in 1969. As recounted by libertarian author Radley Balco in Rise of the Warrior Cop, Nixon and his team had recognized that there existed a Venn diagram in the minds of his base, the so-called silent majority, a term Buchanan coined. They hated crime, and they hated the civil rights movement, and they hated the counterculture. What did all these things have in common? Drugs. Correlation might not logically mean causation, but politics and voting were anything but logical. As simple as that, the drug war, the centerpiece of the ever-growing modern police state, was born, with Buchanan working in the White House as it was all being formulated. Regardless of a politician's inclinations and even their stated intentions, they almost always kneel at the altar of internationalist trade. No one could call Nixon soft on communism. The Senate candidate who had smeared his foe as a pinko in 1950 was the vice president who had poked Soviet Premier Nikita Khrushchev in the chest in the 1959 kitchen debate. This gave Nixon the cover necessary to be the president who raised the glass in 1972 to Chairman Mao, the worst mass murderer in history, in a toast written by Buchanan. Only Nixon could go to China, the saying became. Similarly, as president, Nixon pushed forward much of the left's domestic legislative agenda. It was not despite his reputation as a right-winger, but rather because of it, that he was able to get away with it. Nixon oversaw the implementation of such projects as forced school busing, Title IX, and the creation of the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, OSHA. Rather than relying on Congress, he used executive orders to create the Environmental Protection Agency, EPA,
Oh,
and to
really?
implement affirmative action. Progressive ends implemented by progressive means. Buchanan saw firsthand that the idea that the Republicans were a strong bulwark against progressivism was
park
usually
right
just
here.
that, an idea. The data suggested that the opposite was true. In fact, Republican politicians were far more effective at putting over progressivism than the Democrats because there was no one to their right to criticize them for doing so. Recognizing this, a small group of activists the Libertarian Party in 1972 as an alternative to the two-party duopoly. This new party of principle compromised on its most basic principle, namely, whether it would advocate for an absolute minimal government or the total anarchism that Rothbard and his followers desired. Despite some early hesitation, perhaps akin to, I don't want to belong to any club that will accept me as a member.
Okay, so we're going to go into Costco. We're going to see how well it works. If it drops off, I'll probably end up ending it, but I'll try and bring you guys in with me. Be looking for a gift for my prodigal son. Looks like he didn't reply to the wife. Yeah, they have to in Ohio. That's how they get around it being unconstitutional, because they post it ahead of time. They actually give you the address where it's going to be. So I was thinking about it, man, but it's going to be fucking cold tonight. It's been warm all week, but tonight it's going to be below, less than 30 degrees. And I ain't standing around for 4 hours. 5 hours. But yeah, that's how they get away with it, because they have to post it on social media. Fucking asshole. See if he answers.
I'm sorry, but the person you called has a voicemail box that has not been set up yet. All right. My son's disappointing me, that's all. It happens. I can say I was disappointed sometimes too, but his birthday's Sunday, and all we want to do is do something with him. It's not like we're just springing it at him either. He'd actually replied to Miss Indoctrination the other day saying, yeah, he'd like to do something Saturday. So she just sent him a message before I even started the stream, asking, what time is good and stuff like that, and he's ignoring her. So one of the things I was going to get while I was in here was a gift. Now I need to decide whether or not I want to even do that, because he doesn't even want to reply to my wife. Or answer the phone when I call, or answer my texts. Yeah, it sucks. I appreciate it, man. It just sucks. Oh, I'm going to. And it'll sit at the house until he decides to contact us again. I'm going to. But it's going to determine what type of gift it is. All right, I'm going to bring you guys inside. I'll let you guys help me try and figure this out. Born in 97. It's going to be... I hope not. Not on opiates, but probably some stimulants, but who knows anymore. Dude, it's so far out of my life. Definitely would be something that he can't easily sell. Oh, I get it. I get it. Believe me, I've been through it myself too. But I'm not going to do to him what my mother did to me and just completely abandon him. So I just want to make sure he knows that I'm always here. You know, my oldest son, he jumps in the chat and chats with us all the time, but and he literally puts up like 50 to 100 fucking snaps a day into his Snapchat story, but won't answer a message. He just posted something on Facebook just now. He may see this now. It looks like he's typing something in response on Messenger. Hey, Agalos, welcome. Sorry, bud. Yeah, no, don't worry. No, believe me, no offense at all taken. He's going to be a smart ass in his response. Piece of shit. Well, I'm gonna take you guys in. Getting angry sitting here. Got to get the pretzels. Always got to get the peanut butter pretzels.